Today, we're diving into a topic that, let's be totally honest, can be absolutely maddening for anyone trying to get better at golf. We're talking about why getting worse actually means you're improving. It sounds crazy, I know, but we're going to take a calm, encouraging look at why lasting swing changes take time and why your game might actually need to drop a bit before it can finally peak. Okay, let's start with a universally frustrating scenario. You invest time and money into a lesson, right? You're out there, you're hitting the ball absolutely beautifully on the range. And then a week later, you step onto the first tee and boof, that amazing new swing completely vanishes and you slice your opening drive straight into the woods. It's just a terrible feeling. You think you finally cracked the code only to realize you're kind of the exact same golfer when it actually counts. Well, if that sounds familiar, just take a deep breath. You are so not alone. Experiencing a sudden dip in performance and confidence after a lesson is incredibly common. In fact, it's a nearly universal part of the learning curve. It is definitely not a flaw in your character, and it's not a lack of athletic talent. It's really just the biological reality of how human beings acquire new physical skills. So we really need to dismantle one of the biggest misconceptions in golf. There is a massive fundamental difference between understanding a change and actually owning a change. Grasping a concept intellectually, like, knowing exactly where your right elbow should be at the top of your backswing, that happens in an instant. But getting your nervous system and your muscles to execute that reliably under pressure, that requires deep, deep practice. They are two completely different games. And this disconnect right here is where all that frustration comes from. We all naturally expect immediate results. We tend to think the path is just a straight line. You take a lesson and boom, you instantly shoot a lower score. But actually, scratch that. Expecting to jump straight from the lesson to peak performance is just setting yourself up for massive disappointment. It entirely skips the messy up and down reality of how we actually learn new motor patterns. Real improvement actually follows a very specific 5-step sequence. First up is the lesson, but a lesson doesn't give you the swing. It only creates awareness of what needs to change. Next comes practice, which is required to actually forge a new skill over time. That skill builds confidence. And finally, only after all those steps will performance actually follow on the course. If you try to skip the practice or the confidence building phases, you simply cannot reach performance. No way around it. You might be wondering, why does this take so much time? Well, because your current swing isn't just a choice you make on the tee box. It's the result of thousands and thousands of repetitions over many years. When an instructor asks you to make a change, you aren't just tweaking a position in a vacuum. You are actively trying to overwrite deeply ingrained habits. You're quite literally rewiring the neural pathways in your brain and your muscles. And let me tell you, that old familiar habit is going to fight tooth and nail to stay alive. This explains exactly why your performance might actually get worse before it gets better. Your old flawed movement, it feels completely natural. It's comfortable, kind of like a perfectly worn-in pair of shoes. The new, technically correct movement, however, is going to feel highly awkward and restrictive, simply because your body is in the active process of learning it. You're caught in this messy middle ground where the old way is being dismantled and the new way just isn't automatic yet. So when you're working on a new technique and you hit a terrible shot, you chunk it, you top it, maybe you even shank it. You must reframe your mindset immediately. This discomfort and these poor short-term results are a completely necessary step. It is not a failure. This is exactly what learning looks like. Your body is just figuring out a complex new puzzle, and those ugly shots are literally the feedback it needs to eventually get it right. Because you are actively rewiring these deep habits, you have to completely change how you measure a successful range session. This is a hard truth to swallow, but you have to stop judging your progress by the flight of the ball and start focusing entirely on the quality of your movements. During this phase of practice, the goal is not better shots. The goal is better movements. If you execute the right physical motion but happen to hit a bad shot, you need to count that as a highly successful rep. Seriously, a huge win. So, what actually separates the players who truly transform their games from the ones who stay perpetually stuck? The golfers who see long-term success aren't necessarily the most naturally talented. Instead, they share 3 distinct traits. They completely trust the process. They use feedback properly to monitor their movements rather than their ball flight. And crucially, they stay committed. They don't just abandon the new technique because they had one bad 9 holes. They stick with it through the awkward phase. This all builds to a really simple truth. Let me summarize. A lesson gives you the map. Practice gets you to the destination. Your instructor can give you the absolute best directions in the world, pointing out exactly where you need to go, but they cannot drive the car for you. Those awkward reps, the frustrating range sessions, the temporary dips in performance, that is you doing the driving to reach your final destination. As we wrap up this explainer, as you head into your next range session, I want you to ask yourself, will you judge your practice by the shots you hit today or by the game you're building for tomorrow? The ultimate goal isn't a fleeting, perfect shot right now. It's embracing the awkwardness of learning, putting in the messy reps, and trusting the process to build a stronger, better game that will last you for years to come.